Kei ngā manukura o te motu rarau mai ki te hui. Welcome to the Hui, Māori current affairs for all New Zealanders. E taro ake nei. 20 years old and fighting for her life.
Why did you want to talk to us?
I wanted to share my story about heart disease.
Get out wide.
Latisha Poharama struck down by the disease that took the life of her twin brother.
No words can explain what I felt like, you know. To me, they're only babies.
An intimate look into Latisha's courageous battle. Then it's Hori's pledge. We meet the artist driving the This is Aotearoa campaign, Hohepa Thompson.
What we're doing is trying to offer people more mātauranga around the word Aotearoa and the fact that we're not trying to rename New Zealand at all.
In April, the Hui received a heartfelt plea to our inbox. A young whangarei wahine wanted to share her story about her inherited heart condition, an illness that had already taken some of those closest to her. It was a tono we couldn't turn down, with premature deaths due to cardiovascular disease a leading killer amongst Māori. Here's Rawani Pereira with Latisha's story.
It can be confronting to see someone so young, so sick.
Do you need anything back?
At just 20 years of age, this whangarei wahine is struggling for every breath as her heart battles for every beat. Latisha Poharama wanted to share her story with the Hui and the devastating effects heart disease has had on her and her whānau. Cardiac conditions, a major killer amongst Māori. Latisha is a shadow of her former self. This once outgoing social butterfly was diagnosed with cardiovascular disease 2 years ago when she was just 18.
I had shortness of breath and I was wondering why I had blood in my spit.
Gone was the relative carefree life of a teenage girl, replaced with grimly regular visits to Whangarei Hospital.
Can you just tell me what life was like before this illness?
Life was fun. I was out there living my best life.
In Latisha's case, her heart disease is hereditary. She has a gene called BAG3, passed down from her mother's side of the whānau. It's believed to have caused the deaths of many in her wider whānau.
Do you ever think, why me?
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes I think, why us? Why me and my brother?
That brother was Latisha's twin, James. The whānau thought he had a simple chest infection when he was admitted to Whangarei Hospital. But the BAG3 gene James and Latisha silently carried kicked off in both of them at the same time. For grandmother Reina Tuhimata, it was a heartbreaking discovery.
When I'm visiting James, she's in the hospital over the other side of the wing, and I'm finding all this out. Actually, I was quite shocked for James because he was a very fit boy. And, you know, he was a hard worker. He worked in the forestry.
Can you tell me about James?
Yeah. He was funny, naughty, and he'd do anything for me.
What was it like for you seeing him sick?
It was freaky, it was traumatising. I wanted to do as much as I could for him, but I didn't have enough powers.
Tragically, James lost his fight for life a few weeks after being diagnosed. He was just 18.
What was it like to see your grandson pass away at such a young age?
I don't know, no words can explain what I felt like, you know. To me, they're only babies. And they shouldn't have had to go through this.
Now Raina is left to care for Latisha the best she can.
The bulk of the time I've been her own caregiver.
But you're 72.
Yeah.
Yeah. A good 72, a great 72, but yeah, you don't get any other help.
No.
Apart from whānau.
No.
The only respite Raina gets is when Latisha's stepmother, Stacey Walker Haterini, visits from Kaiwaka a few times a week. She's incredibly close to Latisha, forming a special bond since Latisha was a young girl.
What does a good day look like for her?
Getting up, toilet, shower, breakfast, you know, start the day, and as long as she's smiling really and got her happy and looking for her phone, well, she's all right.
Today's a bad day though, eh?
Today's a bad day. It's just hard for me, like, because that's who Tisha's comfortable with, me and Raina, and I'm far away.
Get out wide. And around.
She loves your mirimiri, eh?
We can spend hours doing it.
Gives her some comfort.
Yeah.
The BAG3 gene that Latisha and her brother James carried is rare, found in only 2 to 3% of cardiomyopathy cases, a disease that weakens the muscle that pumps the heart and can lead to heart failure. Cardiologist Dr. Will Harrison explains.
It's a relatively small number of people who have cardiomyopathy in general, but often these are very young people that are affected, and often multiple family members.
Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of premature death of Māori, twice that of Pākehā.
One of the reasons that our people's cardiovascular health outcomes are not as good as non-Māori is because we as a people overall are less likely to receive the best evidence-based treatment for those conditions. There's complex reasons for that, but one of the key reasons is that currently the health system does not treat Māori or Pacifica or other minority groups equitably compared to non-Māori.
Down in the Waikato, the DHB is hoping to catch cardiac cases early. They've launched an outreach program that specifically targets Māori communities to try to detect heart conditions early. Backed by Māori health champion Lady Te Reiti Moxon, the initiative was launched earlier this month at Kirikiriroa Marae in Hamilton. The first of its kind service delivers heart health care direct to whānau, particularly useful for those living in rural or remote areas. Cardiac nurse specialist Patumahui Lee Wright says early diagnosis and prevention are critical for Māori communities.
I bring all of the screening to them, and all of the screening that I do provides answers right there and then. So I do all of this in a way that observes tikanga, that doesn't make them feel like any of it is their fault. And it's mana enhancing, and that's the whole point, right?
And it's already picking up cases which, with the right treatment, will ensure the person doesn't die young from heart disease.
Can you tell me the age of the youngest person that you've seen?
In their early 20s. The beauty of it is that if I find something in someone who's in their early 20s, I already know that I've essentially saved their life, because this is something that they wouldn't know about until they turned up, probably in 20 years' time, so sick and so oppressed by a system that doesn't acknowledge that they've really had no power in this disease that's happened to them. And so in a 20-something-year-old that I found something, I've just saved a whole lot of misery for the children that they haven't even had yet.
But for Latisha, no early heart check could have helped. The type of heart disease she has, inherited dilated cardiomyopathy, often occurs in late adolescence. Most die within 5 years of diagnosis.
It's definitely not right to see a young 20-year-old girl suffering like that.
Have the doctors told you what the future looks like?
Said that I wasn't going to make it, but in my heart, I believe I will. And I'm not going to let no one tell me if I'm going to die or not.
Are you a fighter?
Yeah, hard.
True to her word, Latisha fought hard to the very end. She was laid to rest at Tarakaka Urupa in Kaitaia, beside her great koro, Sir Graham Latimer.
Love you, family!
For her nana, Raina, it was the second grandchild she had to bury from this terrible disease.
What do you want people watching this story, your story, what do you think they should take away from this?
If you have this type of disease and you're struggling, just keep fighting and never give up.
Oki oki mai rā e hine. Nā Rawani Pereira te rā pūrongo. Next, we meet the artist behind Hori's Pledge. He's the Ōtaki artist currently known as Hori, and he's a Māori on a mission. Hohepa Thompson wants to officialise the name Aotearoa. It's a kaupapa he's taking on the road on what he's called the Hori's Pledge Tour. Kei D'Angelo Martin, te roanga ake o ngā kōrero.
Show us your reversing skills, Chief.
Māori artist Hohepa Thompson, also known as Hori, is making a statement.
Don't worry what this guy and his mate said. This is Aotearoa.
This is Aotearoa, is his koha to the debate around the use of the name Aotearoa.
What we're doing is trying to offer people more mātauranga around the word Aotearoa. And the fact that we're not trying to rename New Zealand at all.
Hohepa is Hāti Māori, and it shows through his artwork.
A lot of the work we work on is on kaupapa Māori and issues that affect our people.
Raised in Ōtaki on the Kapiti coast, the 37-year-old was born into Te Ao Māori.
Growing up, I was raised with Te Reo Māori me ona tikanga. As I kind of went into high school, I decided to stop that side of me, put te tera ki te taha, right over the side and decided to leave that world and follow a more Pākehā ao and go down that world. Yep.
Why was that?
You know, I didn't think I could get a job, you know, knowing te reo or doing that. It just didn't even cross my mind. I didn't want anything to do with it. Although it's the biggest regret in my life, if I hadn't gone down that journey, I wouldn't be able to do this.
It took 5 years of living in Australia to reignite Hōhepa's aroha for te ao Māori, returning to Otaki in 2011.
When I came back home, I wanted to hoki ki tuku reo and tuku Māoritanga, so I decided to kind of start Hori.
Ka kite an.
Hi.
Te wharetoi o Hori is his tūranga waiwai, and where he created his latest art collection, honouring the hopes and aspirations of his tupuna.
It's about showing people what cancel culture looks like and giving them a kind of shoe on the other foot, whakaaro around it, whether we were to take Pākehā names or Pākehā people in history and take that out of history.
And do you think it may perhaps have caused an uproar with those who are in disagreement with your whakaaro or your concept?
Yep, of course. You know, there are a lot of New Zealanders. They tie into these people doing this, is showing people, can you imagine if we started crossing out and taking out those names from our history and to showing them an example of that happening. So it's trying to put the conversation back into their side of the court and ask those questions. Imagine if that happened to you.
And so Hori set off to travel around Te Ika a Māui with a message. And with his billboard labelled, "This is Aotearoa," he hopes to raise awareness and potentially spark conversations amongst whānau.
It's a dumb name, New Zealand. It's like, I don't know if there's an Old Zealand in Holland or whatever named by Tasman. But yeah, let's get it back to Aotearoa.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a real integral part of our culture and we should definitely refer to it as that.
Proud to say Aotearoa, as well as New Zealand, but you know, still part of our heritage, but I think Aotearoa is a fine name.
Hōhepa is also using social media to get his message across, challenging anti-tiriti rhetoric like Hobson's pledge.
We just want to colonize you, they just want to keep colonizing you.
What do you hope to achieve and what type of conversations are you wanting to spark?
I hope to actually, at some point, be able to sit down, whether it's with Brash or anyone else that may come and talk to me, and actually give them that lens and give them that mātauranga.
And as luck would have it, Hori got to do just that. Hobson's Pledge leader, Don Brash, visited Massey University in Te Papaioia to talk about free speech.
Far from us being racist to attack Hei Pūapo, it is the Hei Pūapo report itself which is racist.
Brash's kōrero touched on various kaupapa, including He Puapua, Three Waters, the Treaty of Waitangi, Hobson's Pledge, and Mātauranga Māori.
Do you know what mātauranga means?
My knowledge of it, you mean?
Yeah.
Very limited indeed.
Okay.
Very limited indeed.
You say on Hobson's Pledge, it is through knowledge and understanding that we can move forward as one. I find that a bit of a contradiction as you have no knowledge and no understanding of mātauranga Māori.
How concerning is that when he, in fact, doesn't have an understanding of who Māori are?
It's concerning only because the platform that he has. And there's a lot of other people that agree. And again, they are probably people that have no understanding of our world. So what we're trying to do with the Hori Pledge is to give these people mātauranga Māori.
It's something that Hōhepa is committed to achieving through his mahitoi,
I can see things from each side's perspective. And with my work, I try to give some context into why we think the way we do and why Pākehā might not understand that. So it's kind of bridging the gap between those two worlds.
And he believes those two worlds can be united under the official name, Aotearoa.
And I hope in my lifetime I get to see that happen. And I'm confident that that will happen. We can also remember that history of that time when, you know, in Aotearoa we called it New Zealand. You know, we can still, you know, whakamana that.
Nā D'Angelo Martin, te rari puata. I ngā neto nei, ka kōrero au ki te minita whakawhanake Māori, kia Willie Jackson. Auraki mai anō. Māori initiatives have been allocated more than $1 billion in Budget 2022. So to discuss where and how it will be spent, I'm joined now by the Minister for Māori Development, Willie Jackson. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora mihi.
Pehana.
Ka nui tōra.
So where are we going to spend this $1 billion?
Well, one thing we know is we need investment in our people. So Māori targeted funding, and we've got to be clear about this because, you know, your mates in the Māori Party, Rawiri and Deb, love playing games, you know. They love saying, well, 1.2 billion for all of Māori. You and I both know, you've been around a long time. That's just the targeted spend. It's not 1.2 billion for 800 for 800,000 Māori, is it? It's 1.2 billion for targeted groups, and we're talking about Māori providers. Might be 100,000 of them, and we'll get the rest with our other strategies.
Where's the biggest wins?
I think the biggest wins are in health. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest wins are in health and whānau ora, you know, and particularly in health. I'm really proud of what we've done. Again, despite what your mates have been saying, we've had huge support for what we're doing in the health sector because this is unprecedented. So we've got, as you know, 298 million being put in the health, for the Māori Health Authority, but there'll be also 300 million that transfers across to mihi. So you're talking 500 million, and as well as that, the big thing with the health kaupapa is our health authority will be working with the Pākehā health setup, New Zealand Health. This is the first time that this has happened. So this nonsense about 0.0, it's just nonsense they're coming out with, and I'm really pleased with how we've set this all up. Our health professionals are behind us, and we're working with the Health Authority. For the first time, Māori will have a say on what's happening with everything in this country.
I guess that is the criticism, is that initially it was thought that the Māori Health Authority would be funded the big money, but in fact what's happened is it's the direct commissioning that will get all the big money, and the Māori Health Authority is a clearinghouse, to term a phrase that's been used by a minister before. But so do you think, has that come about because of the pressure that you've been under?
I think that the Māori, I'm so proud of the Māori Health Authority, and we've had a lot of support from the John Tamaheres, whose wife is on it, Aotearoa Jury, fantastic advocate. You know, for the first time, we've got this unprecedented Māori Health Authority, and it's going to be overseeing a budget of over $500 million. That will build up. But the big thing is there's 11 billion on the other side. There's 11 billion on the other side, and they get a say on that. Anything and everything Māori, our Māori Health Authority has a say on. It's like the budget. We've got 1.2 billion. That comes to about 5%, mihi, just for Rawiri and Deb, who keep talking about 0%. You know how good that is, mihi? We're talking about 350 million per year of new money. When you compare it to past groupings, whether it's Labour, National or Māori, they used to get about 30 million a year. we're getting 10 times the amount, which is about 5% of the news spend, because 1.2 billion is 5% of 6 billion in terms of the news spend.
One of the other areas is the media. So following the Māori media sector review, there's been $40 million over 2 years in budget 2022, 8 million for strategy and development, 12 million to iwi media, collaboration ideas for news and current affairs, and 20 million for content creation. So what can we expect to see with this funding?
Well, we're going to see something new, something different. Your producer has worked on this strategy for me and for us.
Lots of Māori have across the sector, eh?
Oh, absolutely. I'm really proud of the work in the last 2 years. My job was to complement that stunning team I had, which was Annabelle Lee, Nicole, what's Nicole's name? Nicole Hoey, sorry.
Bailey Mackey.
Bailey Mackey, Jason Ake, Peter Lucas. I mean, these people are brilliant. Scotty Morrison, and they've put
to see more regional news coming from
yes. Look, the details I can't give now because it's going through cabinet at the moment. But we know what the framework is. It's about more news. It's about promoting shows like this. It's not about using our Māori language money for Māori
That's right, because
shows in English.
It's content that reflects te reo culture, stories and perspectives of Māori. So, so leaving that to the side, that's 40 million. There's a whole lot of other millions of dollars that's been set aside for the merger. Do you have an expectation that Māori will be part of that too?
Absolutely. I've worked with Chris Farfoy in terms of the wider broadcasting story and kaupapa. But my job in the last couple of years is to get money. I've got $80 million in over the last 2 years. That works out to about 15, I know our people are still moaning, but it's still 15-20% of the overall budget. You'll know what the public media budget is. That's a good start. Yep. And I think we've got the frameworks in place and complementing shows that should be funded and supported, like this show, like the Marae show, Moana's show. This is the way to go. I'm excited about the strategy, which can't be released right now because it has to be green-lighted by Cabinet.
But you can guarantee that Māori are involved in the strategic and the implementation?
All the way through. We've got Jim Mather and Bailey Mackey, for instance, on the wider public media sector strategy. We've got some Māori driving this who know what the setup is. As I said, Annabelle Lee and people like her and Scotty Morrison, Peter Lucas, they know it. Nicole, they know this. Jason Ake. This is a different setup. I know people are getting a bit frustrated. They want it here and now, but I have to get it through the process.
I guess the thing is that Māori, in terms of new media and new platform, have been doing this for 20 years because we haven't had those opportunities on the linear platform. So, you know, I think what you're hearing is people saying, we know we've been doing this, we want to be part of it.
And just remember that the money that I got and support I got was the first money for over a decade. So I'm saying, first of all, secure the resources, secure the funding, and the strategy will follow.
Kapai, I just want to talk to you about something that was raised actually on social media, where we do lots of wānanga and tautohe. So it's the archives. They've reduced their hours. I think in Auckland used to be 8 hours under this government, and it's gone down to 4 hours a day. Sometimes it requires an appointment. So for people who are doing the treaty claims work and stuff, it's really difficult. Some have said it's a treaty breach. I mean, what's going on there? As a Minister for Māori Development, wouldn't you be supportive of providing those historic records? It's the only place we can get them.
Well, I checked on that. It's 10 to 3 apparently. Their hours, 5 hours.
9 to 1 in Auckland.
9 to 1 in Auckland, 10 to 3 in Wellington. Yeah, I don't know if it amounts to a treaty breach. I think it's a treaty breach if we're obstructed from getting information. It's incredibly.
Can't you throw some more money at it so they can open up?
Yeah, well, that's the key. You know, people saying, well, you didn't get enough money. No, we never do. You know, I went for 2 to 3 times. We went for 2 to 3 times what we got, but I think we're quite comfortable where we're at, and we've got an opportunity, and that's what it's all about. The framework's in place, mate.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora.
Kei hoki tēnei manu kōrero ki tāna rongohua. Nohoro mai rā. Ka pai. Nā te puna whakatongarewa te hui I tautoko.